Hi everyone, this video I wanted to talk about two ways that I've learned to create better content with AI. Now, before I could even get into those two ways, I want to address my philosophy or my principles for using AI because rightfully there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of hesitancy around AI and content creation that I've seen, particularly on LinkedIn. A lot of concerns around critical thinking, around creativity, around authenticity of content creation with AI. And to start off, my principle using AI is that the quality of your thinking is what will affect the quality of your content. I've seen in certain courses or even certain lessons people do that they make it all about the prompt, right? You just need this one particular and I would describe it as a generic prompt that you could the perfect prompt just to input into anything to output a certain content that you want, which I disagree with. I think the quality of your content should have to do with you, your ideas, your critical thinking, your creative thinking, and AI is just there as a writing assistant, somebody to help you refine, right? So I just want to address these three. In terms of critical thinking, you see this in education a lot. A lot of concerns of kids, teenagers, even in universities, they are just copy and pasting, right? Which I agree that should not be happening. There should be more critical thinking taking place. In terms of creative thinking and authenticity, I've had, the question asked, would you listen to music made by AI? Because I'm a musician, love music. And the answer was no, not really. Not because it's not something good, but because there's something about human ingenuity, something authentic about when we create. It describes each of our unique stories, our struggles, our beliefs, our highs, our lows, our sorrows, our joys. And for me, creativity comes out in every single area. So there's creativity in engineering, there's creativity in business, there's creativity in education, there's creativity in marketing. It just does not have to do with the arts alone. Creativity has to do with problem solving. And it's important for marketing in particular because this would have to do with your brand. And that's why I have a lot of just LinkedIn posts where people are complaining that everything is just beginning to sound very generic, meaning, oh, I can tell AI wrote this, right? And so for me, I just took creating content from a different perspective. And these are the two ways that I create content is by one, asking questions, and two, using analogies and metaphors. And I know you're thinking, but I thought you just said this wasn't about the prompt, right? So the questions I'm referring to does not have to do with the prompt. It has to do with the thinking that you do before you input anything. So starting off with the question, 5 questions that I've realized that I have been using when creating my content unknowingly. One would be, I always ask, what is the hidden assumption behind this idea that is presented to me that I'm interested in? Why is this happening? Is there another explanation for this happening? What perspective has not been considered? And this idea or this scenario that is happening, what does this lead to? What are the implications for the person involved or even the person or the environment around them? Now, the internship that I got was in the leadership industry. So for me, it had a lot to do with psychology. Now, my background is a double major in psychology and management. So given that, and I would always say that the key to making great content is not just, again, even this, asking the questions, but domain knowledge. I think that if you're in industry, whether it be business, learn about psychology. If it's in the tech business, learn about tech. It's not just about doing generic prompts. It's about actually understanding the ins and outs of your industry. So I just wanted to give an example here of, okay, let me switch back, right? Of an idea and the way that I would go about structuring it. Now, my article that I looked at was an article by a public speaking platform called Heroic, and it's on imposter syndrome, which is something the person I worked for wanted me to look on. Now, in this article, there's a few paragraphs that stood out to me, but sometimes it's just one line. Sometimes to create a piece of content, and I know that sounds crazy, it just takes one line. And this particular line that stood out to me was that the idea that you have to be a perfect person to share a message or to share anything of leadership to an audience. And the first question that came to me is, why do people think like that? Because there has to be an underlying assumption that somebody has, right? And so what I came up with was, why would an individual think that they need to be perfect? The hidden assumption would be because these individuals see only leaders at their high moments, right? And it's kind of the same thing with social media, with Instagram. You just post your highlights. We don't actually see the strengths or weaknesses, the mistakes, the private moments of self-doubt. So we assume when going into leadership that we are supposed to be perfect, otherwise we are not good enough, which contributes to imposter syndrome. So then it led me to another question, thinking, okay, so why is this happening? Why is it that leaders are presenting themselves like this? And the next answer I came up with was, this happens because leaders think that if someone sees their imperfections or flaws, that they lose respect for them and even their status. Now, I know that I don't know if it seems like a bit, but for me, some of the best content that I've created comes when you give as much detail as you can to the chat, right? So I'll just give you guys an idea of what this would have looked like. So in my chat, I would have put, okay, my insight here. And what is it I found interesting? I talked about we all perceive those we look up to be perfect. And leaders think that's part of being perfect. Being a leader is being perfect, to hide our flaws. And you can pause this and read through it if you like. But the point is that you don't just want to write one sentence, two sentences. You want to write something lengthy because you want to generate really great content. And in terms of the step-by-step process, I would explain this next. Is a 3-step process that I do, right? So when I'm first inputting my first prompt, I would put the article snippet and then put my take together as one prompt. I input that into the chat and then I get an output. That output, I take it and I run it through the other person's, whether it be the company or the person I'm working for, their ChatGPT. The reason I do that is for voice matching, meaning I want this to sound in their voice because chat learns the way that we speak. And this is important for branding, whatever company that you're working for. And the fourth here would be ask for the best captions for an image post. So one of the things that I like to do is that if I'm posting on LinkedIn, I like to do an image with a caption. So I would ask Chat, okay, can you generate, based on this post we just did, your 3 top picks out of this post that I could do a quote image with it. And so in one there, I can take it, go to Canva, simple, just do up a quote with an image. So this is the 3-step process that I usually use. Now I want to look at another example. Let me see if I can switch around here. All right. So another idea now that I had is, let me scroll down, right? Is this paragraph where it stood out to me that imposter syndrome is when it's focused on you, right? When you start worrying about what everybody thinks of you. And so the first thing that came to my mind, because I'm a psychology major again, was they teach us that teenagers have this phase they go through called the imaginary audience. And I was like, wow, okay, I don't think this is just about somebody just have a worry, or anxiety. I think this is just a psychological makeup of human beings that we experience since we're young. You walk in a room as a teenager and you're overthinking, oh my gosh, people looking at my clothes, my shoes, my makeup, my hair. And that time, nobody really cares, right? And we carry that into adulthood. And so for me, I asked the question, is there another explanation? So I wrote a bit about that, the imaginary audience, and the fact that it's an illusion. We think that everyone is watching us. And my other question came from this paragraph, where it talked about your goal should be to serve people in front of you, not necessarily speaking about yourself or focusing on yourself. And the other perspective I thought about was this. Over here, it talked about generating new ways of thinking in people. For me, I was like, what is a different way I can say this? Right? And again, people think using AI is just like wholesale or copy and paste. But if you really want to generate good content, you have to really think about these things, right? So I thought, instead of saying, in terms of a perspective, instead of saying, oh, it's just to provoke new ways of thinking, it should be provoking the way that people think about themselves, meaning your voice, Your brand, your company, your actions, everything that you do as a leader should be shaping the way that people think about themselves and the team that you're leading. And this impacts you. It makes you more open to feedback. It makes you actually adjusting things to be able to help your employees and help others. And it helps you to shift the focus off of yourself. Now, again, what does this look like in an input, right? And again, I know these things seem lengthy because it is. And I keep telling my friends, I say, people just think I'm copy and pasting off ChatGPT, but they have no idea how much actually goes into it. You know what I'm doing. So let me just move the screen here. Right, so this is actually part of what my input would have looked like. I talked about the imaginary audience, talked about in terms of us making the slightest mistake, how we would probably not think of ourselves as brilliant. The goal should be shaping the way people think about themselves, talking about the company, talking about receiving feedback. So all of that I took, and it was my idea, not copying and pasting wholesale from something that I saw. Now, the last one I want to look at has to do with analogies and metaphors, right? So this last piece of content that I wanted to create, let me pull it up here. It focused on who you are surrounded by. So this paragraph from the article talked about being surrounded by other successful people, right? You know, they have the triple salary as yours, they write multiple books, and you probably just heard one book, right? Thinking you were great, and now you're thinking I'm not that great. And the immediate analogy that came to me was the phrase, small fish in a big pond, right? Or big fish in a small pond. And the reason that phrase came to me, because I thought to myself, a lot of the times, people, when they're growing, they don't realize they actually reach a level of growth where they switch ponds, right? It's like their entire network opens up, the entire circle changes, and they don't even realize it. And so now they're thinking they're behind, when in reality, no, it's just a measure of your success, your growth, right? So the truth is the fact that you're even, in proximity to certain people is a sign of your success. So this is the analogy that I had wrote out here. And I inputted it into chats, and this is how it would have looked. Let me pull it up. Right. So yeah, so my take on it would be reminding of the saying, the big fish in a small pond, small fish in a big pond, and explaining what those two concepts even mean. And again, you can pause this and retreat. I don't want to make this video too long. But when you input these kind of prompts is where you actually get really, really great content, right? So it's taking an idea from an article again, taking your take and putting that as one prompt. After you do that, let me just fast forward to the next slide so you can be able to see it. After you do that, take the article and your take, and you get the outputs. You run that through the person you're working for, the company, to get their brand, right? Their voice matching. And then the last step, and I guess this step is optional, but I think you should do it, is to create an image with a caption to share along with the content. So you have, if I'm posting on LinkedIn, I have the text and I have an image attached to it. So I hope these tips help you. I know it seems like I think a lot because I do. And again, my method or technique isn't a copy and paste method or technique. It's just an idea and way of I do things. You may come up with different types of questions to ask in terms of these type of insights you may draw. But it's just to challenge you when creating content or even going into this industry, not to do generic content, not to just do a copy and paste from AI, but really think with AI and really begin to generate ideas that come from you and not just treat it as a writing assistant, somebody to refine, right? And the last tip I would give is that when I am inputting it into the other person's chat, I actually ask my chat for a prompt. So for example, I may say, okay, we just came up with this great post. I'd like a prompt to input it into this particular company, this particular chat. This is the industry that they're in. And I want to post it to whether it be on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever. And it will generate a prompt for you to then take that and input it into the other person's chat. And when I put it in the other person's chat as well, I have the same format. I have article, I have my take, and then I have the refined version that I input into that chat. I hope that was not too complicated. But you guys see that when working with AI, for me, it is not copy and paste. And I am very, most of you guys who know me, very like to be authentic, very like want the ideas not to just come from AI, but to come from your thinking, the person behind it. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope you guys have fun creating content. And let me know below if this is helpful, what you guys think about this process. And in terms of the marketing industry, what are some of the areas that you guys may be interested in? In upcoming videos, I think I may do a bit about SEO, a bit about blog writing, a bit about like the website, the back end of WordPress, how I build it, and even talk a bit about my Acadium apprenticeship that I'm doing. I hope to finish by August, so maybe by then I'll do a video how I ended up in it, and it's been going great so far. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think below. Okay, so I'm adding this piece of information at the end of the video because I forgot to mention something very important, which is for that first prompt, there are 3 important additional pieces of information I give to chat to give it as much context as possible when creating content. The first would be the industry that I'm working in. The second would be the audience that I'm aiming for. And the third would be the type of social media post. So for example, I'll say, hey chat, working in the coaching industry, specifically the leadership coaching industry, the audience that I'm aiming for. I may tweak it each time. Most of the times I don't even input it again because chat remembers once I input the industry ones and the audience ones, it remembers each time I create a post. So if I'm tweaking, it may just be, hey, this post is aimed more towards HR managers, or this post is aimed more towards CEO managers, for example. For you, your audience, you can tweak it as much as you like, a specific age bracket, a specific income bracket, if they're coming from a certain culture or country, if you want to aim a specific group who likes a specific type of product. It all comes down to how unique you want to make your audience. In terms of the type of social media post, that's important because chat is able to draw from the internet and implement the best practices to make a post more suitable for the platform. So for example, LinkedIn, in terms of it's more text-based compared to Instagram, that's more visual, and it's aiming at a professional community versus Facebook, maybe more casual scrollers. So it knows the way to even structure the post depending on what's trending right now in the industry. So I hope those 4 are very helpful for you in terms of the steps I discussed before. After you give it that context is when you can proceed with the article snippets and your take, then run it through for brand matching as well as the captions for the image post. So let me know down below what you guys think in terms of this method as I mentioned before, and let me know what are some of the topics you'd like to see.